Champions Network, hear our song. Stronger together where we belong. Champions Network. Champions Network. Champions Network. Champions Network. Stories of hope, dreams set free. Lighting the world on CNTV. Champions Network.
Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. This is Champions Network TV in collaboration with NDT, WG TV, and Mbire TV. Today we bring you a critical and timely conversation. The title is Elections and Power in Zimbabwe. It's all about understanding the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 and its impact on the political landscape. Elections are often described as the heartbeat of democracy, but an important question arises. What happens when the constitutional framework around these elections changes? To help us dive into this, we are joined with Dr. Zembe, who is a governance expert. He is not new to this discussion. He has been here before. And so, Dr. Zembe, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Greetings once more, Chairman Misha, and greetings to listeners and viewers of this program being hosted by Champions Network TV in collaboration with NDWG Global TV and Mbire TV. Thank you for inviting me once again.
Thank you, Dr. Zembe. To our viewers, we are live on Mbire TV, on NDWG Global TV, and of course on Champions Network TV. Then let's now dive in straight. I'm coming to you, Dr. Zembe, in our first segment of this discussion. Dr. Zembe, let's start from the foundation. In a democratic country like Zimbabwe, what role should elections ideally play? Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Elections play a very important and critical role because they are required in a system of government which is called a civilian system of government. As you know, a government is a leadership that must take charge of national affairs in terms of management and governance of Zimbabwe as a nation. We need to appoint the executive structure, the leadership structure, the board of directors and management of a country. And in a civilian system of government, elections occupy a central position in the sense that elections are used to appoint a legitimate government by the citizens of the country. And the citizens of the country need to make appointment decisions. Each citizen who is said to be mature enough to make an appointment decision of public leaders requires to make a decision, a choice of who to appoint into public office. And Therefore, elections are required to enable citizens to make decisions to appoint public leaders through a system of elections which is called a secret ballot election. And in a secret ballot election, a citizen makes a decision privately, secretly, in his or her mind, and shows on a ballot paper the decision of who to appoint to be president, who is the head of government, to be member of parliament, who may constitute the cabinet, to be members of parliament, who may represent the citizens in the central governance institution called a parliament. And there is also local government institutions, which are called metropolitan governments or local authority governments. And these require councillors. So a citizen has the power and authority, political power and authority, to make these appointment decisions, to make these choices. So an election harnesses the decisions made by citizens in a secret ballot electoral process. This is how important elections are. They are used to appoint a legitimate government in the country, so that the government takes charge in terms of management and the governance of a nation and a country in terms of providing all what is required by the people. So this is the importance of elections in a civilian system of government. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zembe. Just to follow up, would it be fair to say elections are not just the voting, but also trust in the entire system, of the electoral process? Because some people may only think about election as the day when they go and cast their votes. So,
yes, everything that relates to the belief in appointing a government matters. Elections do not occur in a vacuum. They occur within a constitutional system. A constitutional system is a system of rules and regulations that determine the electoral framework or climate where citizens have complete freedom to make appointment choices, which you call to vote. Now, voting has to take place within a political climate which is conducive to free decisions being made by the citizens. First is the information relating to potential public leaders. As you know, when you deal with political competition, those people who form groups which are called political parties will have organized their parties so that they compete to be chosen by the people in an election, so that the people at the end of the day, they can choose competent potential public leaders. So it is important to have complete political competition without unfairness, without impediment of free political activity, so that the citizens can witness the competitors at work. This is why parties have to make known their electoral agendas, which are called political manifestos. Those political manifestos contain policies that the competing political parties may put into government policies through the legislative processes, so that public policies can then be used to manage and govern a nation. So political competition is critical for electors, for voters to be empowered with the knowledge of who the competitors are, what are their competencies, what are their weaknesses, what do they intend to achieve once they are elected into office on behalf of the nation through government machinery. And that dissemination of information should be done in an electoral campaign. And in an electoral campaign, there should be complete freedom for political competition to take place, so that electors, voters, citizens may have complete knowledge of packages of competing political parties or of competing independents. As you know, that it's not just members of political parties who may put their heads in the ring in terms of an electoral process. Individual citizens can give themselves to the people to be elected as independents or independent candidates who do not belong to groups or simply to political parties. Can also have their manifestos as individuals and put to the electors what they stand for. So yes, it's not just casting a vote, it's about knowing the policies of competing politicians or of competing candidates. It's also about trust, because the electors will have had the background knowledge of who is who. And in an electoral campaign process, electors will be empowered by the information of who is who, so that they can make informed decisions. And as you know, elections have to take place regularly within the constitutional and electoral framework made up of rules. And those rules must have been created by the popular people decisions. Therein comes the issue of a constitution, because a constitution is a meeting of minds of the citizens, an agreement, a shared commonality, shared values of the people. And once the people have shared values, those values are the constitutional framework. Those values are the regulatory framework within which elections can be held. And those values, you would now say that's the genesis of the rule of law philosophy, which is used in civilian governments. And rules and regulations are very important in running organizations. As you know, the government is the biggest organization in a country. And so the government has to be run in the same manner that any other organization at all levels can be run competently by ensuring a constitutional order where there is social, political, economic order. And so here we are in the territory of the importance of principles, rules, conventions, and these are agreed upon values. That is the constitutional framework. Within that constitutional framework, there is a smaller package called the electoral rules of the game. This is why the elections that are held by a nation have to be held within the context of the rules that were enacted by the people themselves. Because elections belong to the people within a constitutional framework crafted by the people. In other words, that understanding in a nation of how to appoint a government through elections belongs to the people. So the people appoint a government through an election, acting within the rules and regulations that are provided at two levels. The broader level is the Constitution. The subsidiary level is the electoral rules. And this is the whole system at play. So for a legitimate government to be appointed in a country, you have to have legitimate constitutional framework, legitimate electoral framework. In other words, these frameworks must emanate from the citizens, from the people, because a government is an establishment by the people, so that the government serves the nation, the people, within a given period of time, after which there is another election which has to be held. So there's the periodic concept of holding elections. This is why, as we debate these issues, emanating from the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026, we have to debate the issues because it impacts on the holding of elections, both at electoral level framework and the constitutional level framework. And I've been talking about the other values that must exist within the context of holding elections by the citizens of this country. Back to you for now, Chairman Misha.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zembe. This one, just in 30 seconds, in your view, do we in Zimbabwe, is Zimbabwe's context to do election currently fulfill the role effective as we have explained it a moment ago?
In Zimbabwe right now, what we are seeing is the lack of an environment where the citizens can appoint a legitimate government. For the past 46 years, since 1980, ZANU-PF political party has been sponsoring candidates who have, one way or another, either being elected or sneaking into public office through rigging of elections, has formed the government since 1980 to date. And what we are witnessing is, over the years, we have not had a required or a functional political climate in the country where the citizens of Zimbabwe were empowered to appoint a legitimate government through free and fair elections. We have not had that opportunity yet. This is why the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 is now being used to prevent this nation from accessing free and fair democratic elections to appoint a legitimate government. This resistance has been there during colonial era for 90 years, from 1890 to 1980. Zimbabweans have been struggling to have the rightful political electoral climate where the majority citizens make choices to appoint a government through elections. Listeners and viewers will, of course, know that this nation went to war. Zimbabweans went to war, armed liberation struggle. And the major objective was the question of appointment of a democratic legitimate government through civilian elections. And for the past 46 years, it's there on record that there's been resistance to creation of a political environment where citizens of this country could appoint a government through free and fair elections. We have not had them during the first phase where Mugabe was the head of government. For 37 years, Robert Gabriel Mugabe never allowed the citizen of this country to access free and fair elections that would result in the appointment of a popular, people, legitimate civilian government. And you will know in 2017 that Mugabe was not removed by an election. He was removed by an insurrection, particularly largely from the security sector and the military. But civilians had long been called for Mugabe's removal through an electoral process. But that removal failed because Mugabe's government became an impediment to the holding of free and fair elections. And for the past almost 8 years, we saw Emerson Mnangagwa sneaking into the leading government executive as the head of state, head of government, and the head of the head of the military, commander-in-chief of the defense forces. And we have had 2 general elections held under Mnangagwa's rule. In 2018, we know that the election was rigged. It was not held under free and fair electoral conditions. In 2023, it was even worse. And we have testimonies, even outside Zimbabwe. Zimbabweans themselves have testimonies of how undemocratic the 2023 harmonized elections were. And those who came to observe our elections also documented how undemocratic those elections were. Therefore, the struggle for electoral and constitutional democratic governance continues. So this brings me to an end of your question to say do we have the rightful political, electoral, and constitutional environment for Zimbabweans to appoint legitimate government through elections, free and fair elections? We don't. So Zimbabweans continue to struggle to establish a truly people-driven democratic constitution which will establish a truly people-driven democratic electoral framework within which free choices, free voting processes will take place to appoint a legitimate government in Zimbabwe. Therein comes now the role of the CAB3 bill, which has been proposed by Mnangagwa's government. The truth is, what has caused the ZANU-PF political party and the ZANU-PF government and cabinet to propose the constitutional amendment number 3 bill of 2026 is failure to govern. And that failure to govern caused the Zimbabweans to reject the presidential candidates emanating from ZANU-PF for the past 46 years. Mugabe has been losing elections in direct presidential elections. Then Mnangagwa has been losing elections in direct presidential elections. Listeners and viewers would know that since 1980 general elections, 1990, we have had a presidential system of government where one person as a candidate was elected to form a government. Ever since 1990, we have had individuals, two of them, Robert Gabriel Mugabe and Emmerson Mnangagwa, forming government through direct presidential elections by the citizens of this country. And right now, what we are seeing is an attempt by the ZANU-PF political party to hide the people's power, to dribble the people. They think that when a president is now appointed by members of parliament, it would be possible for ZANU-PF people to further dribble the people to remain in office, because their candidates have been losing elections as presidential candidates. Now they wanted to hide behind the so-called members of parliament, and they wanted to use the chiefs and Masabuku and traditional leaders to frog march or to rig elections in the National Assembly and Senate. They think that Zimbabweans do not see what they are doing. But the truth is, because of government failure for 46 years, citizens of this country are struggling to dismiss the leadership of ZANU-PF from government. Whether it's in a direct presidential election or in a so-called indirect presidential election through parliament, the people of this country have decided to remove the entire group of ZANU-PF as a political organization, because it has become a monopolist, political monopoly that has failed to run the affairs of government. Very briefly, within 2-3 seconds, I can point out the fundamental failures. Firstly, the failure to create a political climate in which a government could be appointed through civilian elections has not been achieved by ZANU-PF over the past 46 years. They continue to prevent the creation of a people's constitutional framework, people's electoral framework, and the people's appointment of a legitimate functional government. They've not delivered on that score. Look at the violence that characterized the political activities in the country. Just like we have seen violence in Rhodesia, the violence, institutional violence continues. So there's not been any creation of a civilian political climate which will now unleash political competition for citizens of this country to appoint the best brains to manage and govern the affairs of the nation. That is the first failure I can put down that the people have observed. The second major failure is that there has not been any observance of human rights in Zimbabwe. When you look at the history of ZANU-PF engineered government, its rule, first under Robert Mugabe and secondly under Emerson Mnangagwa, is littered with violence, all manner of violation of human rights in this country. The second area of failure is that the ZANU-PF government has failed to send this nation to produce goods and services that should sustain the lives of citizens in this country. That is to say, the ZANU-PF government has plundered the economy of this country, has not been able to create economic opportunities for citizens to unleash their knowledge, their entrepreneurship, their labor to produce goods and services that are required for us to live our lives in the country. Many citizens fled to the diaspora just to get menial jobs, to get basic survival, because that opportunity has never been created in Zimbabwe. To this day, Zimbabweans are fleeing the country in search of better economic pastures, but just to earn basic living. So this is a grand failure. As you know, economics deals with the science of production of goods and services in a country. And the ZANU-PF governments have failed to create the requisite economic conditions where citizens would work for their lives, for their families, and for their country to develop it. So this is one major area. Look at just one aspect of an economy called the monetary aspect, the policies of the role of the money economy. You can see that at this juncture, we don't have a money measurement concept or a unit, which is said to be the Zimbabwean currency. The ZiG currency simply remains a nominal concept by Mnangagwa's government, which is trying to propose a currency for the people. They don't understand, the ZANU-PF leaders, that the currency of money measurement unit is a people's issue. The people are the ones that create their currency through their economy or economic systems. It's never a government that creates a money concept for the people. No, it will never work. What works is what the people decide to say this is our money measurement unit, which is used as a medium of exchange, which is used as a measure of value, which is used to motivate economic production and to reward the practitioners as producers, and so that there continues to be economic activity. I was just looking at one aspect of an economy that the ZANU-PF government has failed for the 46 years. When they got into government, we had a currency that was stronger than the US currency. It was slightly below the British sterling in terms of its value. But they ran down that economy terribly, to the extent that the ZANU-PF government has not done anything to create employment for the citizens of this country, to create investment opportunities for the majority citizens of this country. And they continue to destroy opportunities that Zimbabweans should grab so that they begin to work for their lives. We go on to another area of dismal failure is the one of providing public services, like all the revenue that is required to run the affairs of government. If you look at the salaries of civil servants in the country, this government is failing. Look at currently the nurses are protesting because they are not empowered to give health services to our population that is in hospitals, and people continue to die because nurses are not empowered to save lives anymore. Look at what is happening even in the education sector. You see the teachers are getting peanuts. They do a lot of work 24/7 in a day to educate the young population in our country. But they are given peanuts and they can't even run their own lives. They can't even educate their own children as teachers. And this is torture. It is because the ZANU-PF government has failed to produce, has failed to send this nation to work, and therefore the tax base has shrunk terribly, such that they can't raise revenue to pay good salaries to teachers, so that our teachers are motivated from primary right through to university. You see, if a person who owns a doctoral qualification, being a teacher at a university, getting $200 a month, this is financial and economic torture. It's failure by the ZANU-PF government. I could go on and go on. Look at the infrastructure. Just a day ago, I traveled by road using Gweru to Mvuma Road. It's so rugged that it damages the vehicles. The tarred roads that were put in Rhodesia have all been destroyed. And the tar that remains becomes really the cutting edge on tires of vehicles. It's a shame. Yet you find that there's a councillor in that area, there's a member of parliament in that area, there's an MP, a minister in that area, and we have a vice president and president of that area. But the question is, look at the public infrastructure. It's all dilapidated. Just to conclude on this phase, only a couple of hours ago, I traveled through the dusty road leading to the Dinson Iron and Steel Company in Chivu. We have heard Mnangagwa's government saying, we have succeeded, we are succeeding in that iron and steel company in Chivu. But I challenge anyone who is listening to this discussion to go to what is called the Pamavisi between Chivu and Mvuma. You turn along that road where there is Manize, Dinson Iron and Steel Company. You will see how that road has damaged the environmental and ecological system in the area. There's a lot of dust affecting vegetation and people and animals, in that area. And there's dust on tree leaves, on grass, and that dust has polluted the air that the biological organisms use to breathe in order to live. Now, how could we then say it's a success story? The road that leads to that company is damaging public life. The environment and the ecological setup is being damaged. They couldn't even make a damaged road to put a tar the road. It's just 25 kilometers off Chivu Vuma Road, tarred road. Then that is the company extracting the minerals, whatever the produce is taken to foreign countries. And then they are saying, it's a success story. Success story of who? When the local people are being damaged by that mining activity, that company's activity. They don't even have the audacity to know that the locals should benefit from what that company is doing. This is the social responsibility of private sector companies. They must develop the areas where they source their raw materials from, where they have located their industrial operations in. This is what should happen in a well-run government. But it's because the ZANU-PF government has dismally failed. I must conclude by saying the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 is trying to run away from the people of this country so that there's more damage. They want to prevent the elections from taking place so that they now they continue to dictate and to run down the affairs of the citizens of this country. In fact, let me end by saying that the ZANU-PF government should know they are not going to cheat this nation any longer. If they manage to dictate this bill on the people, then they will have pressed a red button, because the people of this country have long decided to put out in an election ZANU-PF government and the party out of the government structure, so that the citizens of this country can elect a democratic, legitimate government to run the affairs of their lives. ZANU-PF people are going to be defeated even if they decide to suspend the elections. And when are they going to start to allow citizens to have elections? People are going to fight to establish elections of their own, just like they fought in Rhodesia for 90 years, now in Zimbabwe for 46 years. So Zimbabweans will continue to fight for an opportunity to establish civilian rule that is based on elections that are held under free and fair constitutional and electoral framework from the people's power. So that is going to happen. I've been talking a lot. For now, let me stop and refer to you, Chairman. These issues are important. And this is why sometimes the answers can, if they are too brief, then our listeners and viewers may have difficulty to understand. That's why at least you have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zembe. Yeah, you have been answering a lot of my questions that we have been following. But for those listening on either you are listening on Mbire TV or on Champions Network TV or NDWG Global TV, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe to these channels. And over and above all, we want you to engage with Dr. Zembe, who is in the house. You can do so by putting your comments in the chat box. We have seen Timothy has already said he feels there's no room, there's no space for cohesion in a democratic country. But we find in our country, as Dr. Zembe has said, cohesion is the order of the day. So if you want to, you can join us. There's a link in the chat box. Either when you are watching on Champion Network TV, Mbire TV, or NDWG Global TV. You can join Dr. Zembe and you can ask your questions. I know time is not on our side. We have just touched the first part. I think we will put the next part to either tomorrow or the day after, when we talk about the implications of Amendment Bill number 3 to the political landscape. But Dr. Zembe, there are some viewers who might be viewing this broadcast for the first time. Can you, in a short, explain what is Amendment Bill number 3?
Yes, this bill aims to ban elections of the president, of members of parliament, of councillors. The elections that were supposed to be held in 2028. This bill proposes to ban those elections. Number one. Number two, this bill proposes to change the way in which Zimbabweans can appoint the president. From 1990 to date, Zimbabweans have been appointing a president through elections, direct elections. But this bill proposes that should be appointed by members of those members of parliament who have in a single member constituencies. We have 210 members. So this bill proposes those members of parliament of the National Assembly and of the Senate, up to 90 there, should be the ones to appoint a president. Second objective of this bill. The third objective is that this bill seeks to change the people or the body that handles elections in terms of the voters' roll. They wanted to go back to the Secretary General of Deaths and Births Registration, the SG, like the system. They want to go back to the fact that the record of voters should be kept by the Registrar General, who is an officer under the Home Affairs Ministry. So they want to parcel out voters' roll registration to the Registrar General, so that the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission cannot handle the voters' roll registration. Another area of change being proposed by this bill is that the chiefs and the Sabuku Namasadunu are now supposed to be political commissars of parties. You know, the current constitutional write-up of 2013 prohibits traditional leaders from being active members of political parties because they are traditional leaders. Their authority is not derived on a political contestation based on voting and political parties. But this bill wants chiefs and their leaders, that is Masabuku, Namasadunu, to be allowed to be card-carrying members of political parties. That is what this CAB number 3 proposes, among other things. And other areas, it proposes to ban the Gender Commission. You know, the Gender Commission is the constitutional establishment. When you look at the 2013 Constitutional Amendment Act number 20, has established the Gender Commission. This is a body that looks into the interests of women and men. Gender, it simply means the rights of men and women. And this is suggested by this law to close that commission. In other words, to ban it. And so women will remain without any representation at all or aggression of, as you know, women's rights are supposed to be uplifted when you look into our background and in terms of the politics of the land. We also have another area of which is being proposed of appointment of judges. Appointment of judges, this law wants to give power to the president to appoint judges. Then another area that this law proposes is that the president who will have been elected by the members of parliament must have power to elect 10 senators in the upper house, which is the Senate, just by himself, appointing those 10 members in the Senate. And these are some of the major changes that this bill is trying to introduce and into law. In other words, you know, this bill tries to take away people's power to produce a government of their own, to produce the top law, which is called the Constitution. They are trying to manipulate by creating, you know, power for themselves in public office without coming to the people. They are trying to rob the people of their political power. This is what this bill is trying to do. I hope I have covered most areas that it covers, but there are many more changes that this bill is trying to achieve. What I have stated are major changes that have come into my mind straight away. You know, I was explaining what this bill is all about. This law, which is being proposed, is all about. Back to you, Chairman.
Right, Dr. Zembe, as I have promised the viewers that we are going to tackle the other part of the discussion, which is the impact of the amendment bill on the political landscape. Would you agree with me that we can do that either tomorrow or the day after?
Yes, the sooner we have it, the better it provides the continuity on behalf of our listeners and viewers.
Thank you very much. I know our viewers, we only had Timothy who commented to say cohesion has no place in a democratic society, and we also had the Tadi who are saying Masquera say and Takaterera, which means they are listening. So before we close the broadcast, what is your final word to the people who are listening to us and those who shall listen, and also to anyone who can be in position of authority either in Zimbabwe or someone who is in the progressive or opposition politics? What message can you give to them?
Yes, firstly, I would like to agree with Timothy in his observation that compulsion or coercion or a force, dictatorial force, is not part of a civilian system of government. violence is political force that should never be allowed in a civilian system of government. Forcing people, like we have seen in Rhodesia and the post-independence to death. And that belief should be upheld by all citizens of this country. And that leads me to my final remarks, as you have invited me to make them. Zimbabweans should continue to struggle for a democracy in their country, a people's democracy in their country. That is to say, creation of an environment where we have democratic constitutional rule, where elections belong to the people, where elections are held in terms of the people's laws, not laws of dictators, not laws of presidents or of parliaments that exist that got into office without the people's blessings. The people must continue to struggle for their freedom, for the observation of human rights. The people should continue to struggle for adult suffrage. It's a political term meaning the people must fight for the right to appoint a legitimate government. Each citizen, avazera pakushara, in electing a government, must do so freely, must make that choice freely, having had access to all those citizens who will be competing to be elected by the people. There should be complete freedom. The army should never come anywhere close to the people's free and fair democratic elections. That is not the role of the military. The security service sector, the home affairs, political power delegated to police should never be used to prevent free and fair political competition. Citizens of Zimbabwe should create an environment where political business is done on their behalf and according to their own regulatory framework. There must be complete freedom for people to make choices of appointing public leaders, public managers, public governors represented by a government. That is what must continue to be the guiding philosophy of Zimbabweans. All of us, let us rise to demand, to create, to re-establish our political power as citizens of this country. The people shall govern. They shall govern through the people's laws, constitutional and electoral, so that a people's government can take charge and send this nation to work and create peace and happiness, where all Zimbabweans establish their complete freedom, economic freedom to act, to work for their lives, and to enjoy life here on earth. So this is my parting shot. This is a juncture that let's intensify the democratization process. It is unfinished business from Rhodesia to this far. Yes, national lives take that long, but let's continue to resist dictatorship by people of our own skin color who have betrayed us from the time when we embarked on the armed liberation struggle. Now, since 1980, we have been embarked on a democratic, constitutional, and electoral struggle. Let's continue to intensify. We will be our own liberators as citizens of this country. Let's continue to embrace to work together and create a formidable people's political power so that we defeat these citizens of ours who have become betrayers, who have become looters of public wealth. They are stealing that wealth, giving to themselves and their families, using public office. They should vacate office and allow citizens to have elections to appoint a government of their own. This is what I urge Zimbabweans to do. Thank you very much, Chairman Misha. Back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Zembe, for your time and for sharing your valuable insights when it comes to democracy and governance. We don't take that sharing. We don't take it lightly. We value it. And to our viewers, before I put my final remark, I think Timothy had said something here. Timothy had said, I would like to comment on ZANU's assertion that that elections have been a source of violence, and yet they are the ones denying other political parties from campaigning during elections. I don't know if you wanted just to give a brief comment on Timothy's observation.
Oh yes, certainly. Timothy has hit another nail on the head. We have had ZANU-PF desperately trying to justify the manipulation of the constitutional values by saying that presidential elections have been violent and they have been toxic, and that elections therefore cause violence. Now we know that ZANU-PF people have been violent for the past 46 years. And they have been violent in all elections, presidential elections, parliamentary elections, and local government elections. And when they say that presidential elections have been toxic, they forget that they have been very violent, and they forget that they are trying to blame elections for violence. This is shameful. This is shameful. Violence is a human activity meted out by other humans on others. Killing, raping, murdering, abusing, injuring others. It's not done by elections. It's done by human beings, natural human beings. And they're using the public institutions like the police, the army, the CIO, the jails, the courts. ZANU-PF has corrupted all these institutions, and they've turned them into centers of state violence against the citizens of this country. And it's not just against political opposition, even civil rights movements, professional movements, even educational institutions. Because the teachers have been brutalized and killed for teaching citizens or children of their rights, or for teaching subjects like government and politics. Everything is political. Teachers have been attacked by Mugabe's government, ZANU-PF government, that they are teaching the citizens, they are awakening them. But yet a teacher has no barriers. She teaches education. Whatever is in the curriculum is taught to young citizens of this country. And is it elections that destroyed teachers? Is it elections that destroyed doctors and medical doctors and nurses? Is it elections that destroyed companies? The railways of Zimbabwe was run down Cisco Steel Company was run down. Zimbabwe's company was run down. Major companies that produced goods and services for this nation were run down. I don't know if I mentioned the Air Zimbabwe was run down to zero. And these are state-owned enterprises that the ZANU-PF people violently looted, running them down, with leaving people without any access, any public services, including medical services. So the ZANU-PF people have no reason in actually claiming that elections have been violent. They are the ones who have been violent. They are the ones who occupy public office, turn them into private institutions, loot, and then use them to destroy others, to violate the rights of others, to kill citizens, using the military, using arms of war that are supposed to be used to defend the nation, are then turned against the citizens of this country. This is how evil the ZANU-PF people have become. So it's just a lie that Bill number 3 is necessitated by the desire not to have violence. So why shouldn't the media ask Mnangagwa and this government, when are they going to allow Zimbabweans to hold elections? They are currently saying, we want to be in office. They want to be in public office up to 2030. Why are they saying that? When are they going to allow elections? If they ban elections in 2028, as per our constitutional agreement, when are they going to open elections? Who are they to say, now we close the tape of election, the valve, then we're going to allow elections? When are they going to allow elections? They should have been more complete. They can't just say we cannot have general elections in 2028. When are they going to allow this country to have elections, according to their thinking? I'm not saying they have the power to do so. No, they don't have the power to do so. But it's just that they have no reasons for proposing other than to say they have failed to govern and Zimbabweans have been defeating them in those bogus elections. Zimbabweans have made their decisions. They will not backtrack. And they will not wait for ZANU-PF government to allow Zimbabweans to hold elections. No. Zimbabweans have greater wisdom. They are going to struggle and cause elections to be held at any time, so that Zimbabweans appoint a legitimate government which should take charge of the people's affairs in an orderly manner. Zimbabweans know that they have been brutalized, and they know that in their collective action, they have power that goes beyond power of the minority, including power of the abused institutions. Look at how they are abusing the ZBC TV and radios. These days, do you hear anything relating to opposition political groupings? Do you hear anything relating to opposition views from citizens of this country being expressed at these institutions? Nothing. Yet these are public institutions financed by public revenue that is contributed by us all as citizens of this country. This is how selfish the ZANU-PF administration has become, and the ZANU-PF people stealing, living alone, stealing from the public, even through taxation system. And then they enjoy themselves those resources that should be enjoyed by the citizens of this country. This is a very serious issue, and I thought I should do justice to it now, although we are concluding, but I had to concur with the observer who talked about the issue of violence, that it is a ZANU-PF political party that is violent, and the people are now pursuing them through peaceful processes, and that the people are going to win. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zembe. As I said, we can't thank you enough for sharing your insights and the passion. And to our viewers, remember the bill will be taken to Parliament, I think between 15th and 17th of the next month. So I always say every individual should know what is the process of this bill going into Parliament. What is your role as a citizen? What will be your role as a parliamentarian? What will be your role as a progressive movement, so that you do your part before this bill goes into Parliament, so that when it is debated, if it is going to debate, it is debated on the premise of informed people. We will continue to do this broadcast so that we educate people of Zimbabwe of their roles. As we said, the next session is going to be around the implication of this bill to the political landscape. And the Timothy is always there. He's always commenting. He's saying, "Oh, this is the kind of message we need to keep telling our people." So he's agreeing with you that this is the message that we need to push. And as I said, these 3 channels will continue to bring people like Dr. Zembe. He's always available to come and talk to you about the issues at hand. And if you have got any questions that you want to understand about around this bill, around governance, around democracy, if you pass your comments, Dr. Zembe and any other people who come on this channel to answer your questions. So as always, today's discussion reminds us that democracy is not just about casting a vote. It is about the system itself, as Dr. Zembe had said. It is about institutions and about trust, and that is given to that voting process. As Zimbabwe continues to evolve, conversations like these are essential in shaping informed citizens and accountable leaders. You have been watching on Champions Network TV and also on Mbire TV and NDWG Global TV. As always, I am your host, Mija, and I've been graced by Dr. Zembe with me in the studio. So until next time, I always say, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep the conversation going. Whatever information you have heard from Dr. Zembe here, take it into your private conversation and have conversation with your network. And if questions arise, always come back and we will be here to answer your questions. Until next time, I say goodbye.
Thank you for watching Champions Network TV. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell icon so that you get the ding 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 every time we do post our videos.